Everyone has a Plumbus, and everyone knows what it does, so there's no real reason for me to explain it. Of course, I'm talking about the popular home and office device from Rick and Morty. We don't actually know exactly what a Plumbus is worth, but according to the episode Interdimensional Cable 2 Tempting Fate, a stolen one was worth 6.5 brapples. Oh, also, we actually have no freaking clue what it is or what it does.
I always wondered how Plumbuses got made.
It was first introduced in the original Interdimensional Cable episode, where we're taken on a channel surfing tour of the universe.
I just upgraded our cable package with programming from every conceivable reality.
Rick manages to set up the Smith family TV with channels from all sorts of different galaxies and dimensions.
I'm Anson My Eyes Johnson. Everything's black. I can't see a thing. And also I can't feel anything either. Did I mention that?
As you'd probably expect, they stumble upon some pretty odd stuff, including a How It's Made parody called How They Do It, in which the narrator explains the process of manufacturing a Plumbus. In the episode, they go into detail on how a Plumbus is manufactured, including processes like taking the dingle pop and smoothing it out with a bunch of schleem. The schleem is then, of course, repurposed for future batches. Also, they really make sure to rub that fleeb to get all that fleeb juice. You know, standard stuff like that. The running joke throughout the episode, and the whole series, is that the Plumbus is so common and so well known that there's no need to even explain what it is. Only, that's not how things work over here at ScreenRant. We can't just let a joke like that slide without digging way too deep into it and figuring out exactly what a Plumbus actually is. Perhaps it was just meant to be a joke and there was never a real item in mind, but we did the research, and we found out what a Plumbus is. And in fact, it's a real item that does exist in most homes and offices. It's just a different version of a common item. The show and even the How They Do It clip do little to explain what this item is, but there's actually another source of valuable information. If you purchased the DVD set of Rick and Morty The Complete Second Season, it actually came with a Plumbus owner's manual. While this may have just been meant as another gag, whoever created the manual actually gave up some relevant information. Skimming through the manual, there's a bunch in there that's completely and utterly useless. We won't need to look at any of the accessories section, as the Plumbus already comes with everything it needs to function properly. The majority of the stuff in the safety instructions sections, as well as the general product statements in the features sections, aren't very useful either. There's a couple of features, however, that do stand out. While the Plumbus isn't exactly alive or sentient, we do know that it's made up of organic tissue. This fact is mentioned twice within the owner's manual. First, in the features section, it outright states, quote, Plumbus connects to your brood using GHG connective tissue. So that's pretty self-explanatory. Then, later in the troubleshooting section, it mentions that Plumbuses, or is it Plumbuses?
Beads.
Bees?
Beads.
Bees?
Are able to climb stairs, and if the Plumbus can't, then it may need its flube trimmed. By that logic, they must be made of not just organic tissue, but muscle tissue, since they're capable of climbing up a staircase like a reverse slinky. The owner's manual also reveals that Plumbuses have a playback dock, which means we can assume it's used to play music, because the functions of the dock are the same as literally every music listening device that exists.
You like Huey Lewis on the news?
They're okay.
They also have an airplane mode, as stated in the manual, where it says that if airplane mode doesn't activate, it doesn't have transmission. So typically, a Plumbus is able to transmit radio waves. Apologies in advance for some boring science talk here, but it's been scientifically proven that radio waves can be transmitted through connective tissue, even within the human body. A lot of people online speculated that the Plumbus is some sort of sexual item, but page 2 of the owner's manual clearly states that, quote, pressing Plumbus against sensory organs will result in sickness or death, so we can rule that one out pretty confidently. So if it's not that, and it transmits radio waves and is made of organic tissue, then what the heck is this thing? Well, both of those factors are important to discover the primary function of the Plumbus. The Plumbus has the ability to conserve and generate heat. We aren't 100% sure what sort of tissue the item is made out of, but if it's fat cells, then it would absolutely have the ability to do both of those things. So if the plumbus transmits radio waves, then it actually does generate heat. I mean, that's how microwaves work. They cook food by utilizing radio waves to create heat. While plumbuses don't do exactly what microwaves do, which would be obvious, the owner's manual does state that it's able to produce enough heat to cook food.
Hello Wildcats, this is Weber Cooks, and today we're doing chili cheese nachos.
It also comes with a warming tray, and you can't cover up a plumbus fully in bed, even though it requires love to operate. In fact, it even states that lubrication is necessary in order to handle it. They never explain why, but it's probably because the thing overheats. So wait, is it just a microwave? Well, no. A microwave isn't nearly as portable as this thing is. Plus, it does more than just cooks food.
We start with a can of chili and open it up.
Just because it's able to heat up doesn't mean that's all it's good for.
Later, Chef Mike!
However, there is another common household item that heats up, that has several functions, and that resembles a plumbus a bit more.
Who's that? Household item.
Ladies and gentlemen, a plumbus is just a space-age version of an iron. Yep, the code has been cracked. While a standard iron isn't made of connective tissue, it can absolutely produce enough heat to cook food. It requires being upright when in use, which explains why the warming tray not only warms the plumbus and keeps it upright, but also keeps it from touching anything it can burn. The safety instructions also states that it sometimes requires testing on smaller areas, like to see if it would burn a specific fabric. It also warns that it can connect to other objects if not used properly. According to the troubleshooting part of the manual, it says that's because of a moldy chumble, but seeing as how that's a nonsense word that means nothing, perhaps they actually mean it can fuse to garments or other items the way that an iron would if held for too long on too high of a heat setting. All this considered, all signs point to iron. Sure, it's not the standard type of iron that you or I are used to. It's some sort of interdimensional version, but an iron nonetheless, I assure you. Perhaps the prototypical iron that we all know and love is simply version 1, and the plumbus is the evolution of the same thing. Also, I don't know why I said know and love. Does anyone really love their iron? You know, now that I think about it, it would make a lot of sense if a plumbus was simply a space-age iron, but there's also a couple of holes in that theory that I'd be remiss if I didn't mention. Mostly because I don't like getting called out in the comment section, so I'm gonna do my best 8 Mile here and just call myself out. I mean, for starters, it's kind of a bad shape to be used as an iron, and the manual specifically says not to mess up the chumble. So I'm not so sure it could be used properly in that fashion. Not to mention the fact that it appears to be a multi-use tool. It's good for cooking, for cleaning, and even for playing music for some reason. So perhaps it isn't necessarily an iron, but an iron is simply one of the many features of a plumbus. It's like a next-level Swiss Army knife kind of thing, capable of multiple functions and uses, and being an iron is simply one of them. It's a new device that is capable of doing multiple things that we already know, but have never seen grouped together into one item before. It's tough to imagine an item that doesn't exist yet. It's like saying, close your eyes and think of a new color. But that's exactly what the creators of Rick and Morty did. They made up a device that can be an iron, a radio, and everything in between. It can heat up, it can emit radio waves, it can quite literally do it all. But I didn't have to tell you that. Everybody knows that already, right? We all know what a plumbus is, so why bother even explaining it? Right? Right? What do you think? Any ideas what the plumbus actually is? How would you use a device like this? Let us know your thoughts on this mystical item in the comment section down below. Tell us what you think it resembles and what you might use it as. Before you go, make sure to smash that thumbs up button with all your might. Also, be sure to subscribe to ScreenRant to stay up to date on all of our latest and greatest releases. Until next time, bye!